Yo, it's Jojo. Today we're gonna talk about Diablo 4 and my first impressions of the game, what I liked, what I didn't like, and as I've been playing ARPGs my entire life since Diablo 1 on the PlayStation 1, as well as thousands of hours in the Path of Exile, I do think I understand these kinds of games fairly well. So I hope you enjoy this little breakdown of what I think needs improvement, as well as what I think is pretty good already. This game does definitely have potential. So, without further ado, let's get into it. So, I'm gonna start off with gameplay. The combat feels pretty good. It has that Blizzard polish. It's crisp. It's fluid. When you press your abilities, they happen quickly and feel very nice to press. You do have some pretty long cooldowns early game, which it's not too bad in my opinion. I don't like PoE where you have virtually zero cooldowns at all. You just have a left click and a right click, you spam those. Maybe you do have a vol skill here or there. So I don't mind the cooldowns, the more methodical, thoughtful gameplay that you get with these cooldowns. I like that. They do feel long at the start, but I believe endgame with some cooldown reduction, with some legendary synergies, you're going to be spamming abilities like no tomorrow, as we can see with some of the synergies already existing with some builds. For example, the Ice Blade's vulnerability cooldown reduction that I'm going to be talking about in another video. So the skills, animation-wise, feel kind of lackluster to me, especially coming from Lost Ark with these beautiful animations and skills that just look great, to be honest. So just pooping out a little fireball at an enemy that explodes, it's not too beautiful, especially when you compare like the meteor in Diablo 4 with the meteor in Lost Ark. I don't really like it. Maybe it becomes cooler when you do have some more cool like legendary powers that upgrade them in some way. We will have to wait and see, to be honest. Can't really say much with the level 25 beta. And there are some super weird buffering issues with the skills that I've noticed. So, for example, if you try to spam a bunch of abilities, you're gonna notice that your character doesn't really use them. So if you use one ability at a time while moving around, it feels really smooth and fluid. That's like the Blizzard polish, like in Diablo 3. But if you try to spam abilities, like if you spam your Hydra, you try to summon an Ice Blaze at the same time as popping Ice Barrier, there are some weird buffering issues where the ability doesn't really come out when you want it to come out. And I don't really know what that, why that is. You can definitely see this when you play the cooldown reduction build that I was talking about, because you get the shit out Ice Blades so fast. And you notice that when you start spamming abilities, as well as trying to move and kite, the abilities just don't come out. There's some weird buffering issue. You can see this if you try to like run. If you hold left click to run, and you maybe pop Ice Barrier first, at the same time as you try to summon a Hydra, your character is like gonna run a little bit and then summon the Hydra, which just feels awful. Same thing with spacebar, your evade. It does feel super smooth to use usually when trying to dodge attacks, and just pressing spacebar, using an ability, and channeling that into like a cool fluid combat that feels good. But if you get CC'd, frozen, stunned, or hooked or something, as you press spacebar, it's gonna buffer. So whenever you come out of the CC, when you're out of the freeze, your character is just gonna use the spacebar afterwards and probably put you inside the middle of a bunch of mobs and kill you. So that kind of sucks. When it comes to like dodging, tanking, healing, so far we're only at level 25, can't really say much. Did have to spacebar some telegraphed abilities from the bosses, which that was pretty cool. It was pretty fun to do. Not too many interesting mechanics other than the world boss where you actually had to dodge two very dangerous mechanics. But for the most part, you could just stand still and face tank stuff, pop your potions, and deal enough damage so that the potion orbs would drop from the bosses. So we'll have to wait and see, I guess. The UI, I've heard a bunch of people whine about the UI, saying it looks like too mobile game-ish, console game-ish. I don't really mind. I think it's okay. Sure, it might be a little bit ugly, but I don't really mind. It looks okay. It's fine to me. The only downside is when it comes to inventory management. So the inventory is really small. It fills up super quickly. If you do one dungeon, it's pretty much full instantly. You gotta teleport out, sell some stuff. And the biggest problem with this is that gems. You're gonna drop gems all the time. You want to pick up all the gems so that you can combine them into bigger gems. And that's like 7 slots that you have to have gems in your already limited inventory. So you just have to keep them inside of your inventory all the time. And as well, since a big part of the endgame gameplay loop is going to be finding a rare that you can slap on a legendary power, you want to be looking at all the rares. You want to pick up all the rares. And you can't see items on the ground. So this is something that I would really like them to implement. We had this in Diablo 3. You could just hover over a rare. You would be able to see the item description, so you don't have to pick it up and put it in your inventory. Please, for the love of God, give us this, because now we have to pick them all up, look through the inventory real quick. And that's also a problem, because you can't look through rares in the inventory quickly, because there's like a weird delay while hovering the mouse in your inventory. So if you just do it quickly, the item description doesn't even come up. So you have to like hold the mouse, wait a second, the item description comes up, you read it, do the same thing again. You can't just like hover over quickly to see fast what the stats are. One good thing though, the spacebar to mark like junk for salvage, that's really neat. I like that a lot. You can just, while you're looking through the things, while you're running the dungeon, just press spacebar to mark it as junk. When you come to town, salvage all junk, boom, you're done, you go back to playing, reduces the time spent in town, which is always good. And then one annoying thing that is probably just for console is that you have to scroll through like item descriptions because they're so long, and that's probably a console thing. On computer, you would definitely have enough space to be able to read everything in one go, but oh well, that's a minor issue. When it comes to character progression, well, we've got items. They felt powerful. They felt like build defining, I would say, even in the early game. If you found an item that increased the bounces on your chain lightning, you would feel super powerful. If you found like the double hydra, you would feel insanely powerful. More damage while barriers, like they were fun and build changing enough that you would like try out different skills as you found legendaries, which I like. It's definitely fun to be able to just try out some different skills while you level as you find some legendaries. So when it comes to skill builds, I would say that the talent tree is not very interesting. Unfortunately, just having 2 decisions for every skill doesn't really bring a lot of variety. Most likely, it's going to be extremely obvious which type of those 2 decisions you want to make, depending on what build you're running. So the builds are probably going to look very cookie cutter. Copium is that the Paragon board will fix this somehow, where you can have some own skill expression, I was gonna say. Not really skill expression, but build diversity, I guess. And it does look like it's gonna be quite complicated. From what we've heard about the Paragon board, having like this big board with 4 different gates that you can spin around, combine a bunch of different tabs, it might be very, very complicated and complex and intricate. So we will pretty much just have to see, I guess. So moving on to the lore, atmosphere, and zones. This is something that I gotta give props to Blizzard for, because they absolutely nailed this. Like, the lore, you start off lost with your horse in a snowstorm, wake up, fight your way to a village where after helping them, like, you get drugged and almost sacrifice the demons. So much more like dark and gritty. Everyone just like does whatever they can to survive, even at the cost of others. So they really lowered the scope, I guess. You help out a bunch of different people in town. It's more like, especially the side quests, they were way smaller in scale. It was just some either smaller groups of people or a lonely person that has somehow succumbed to greed, to their desires, and that felt very intimate, I would say. It's not as much of this save the Lord Nephilim, you are the savior, the chosen one. While there are some like inklings of that in the main story, with like Rathma's prophecy and the light, I do think we're gonna have some cliffhangers and some what's it called? Whatever. And music is 10 out of 10 in every zone. Definitely loved that part. It was just I have no words to describe how good the music is. I definitely put max volume on the music and just ran around in the zones. Mwah. Voice acting as well, 10 out of 10. Even just random NPCs in town had just really good voice acting. After having played Lost Ark and other like similar game, especially like Korean games being ported over here, the voice acting is always jank. So I've never really cared about voice acting at all. But in this one, I would just be amazed and astounded every time, even just a random NPC in town that just spoke and said something. So big props. And the atmosphere just feels super spooky. You definitely feel alone and deserted in the midst of a bunch of demons and ghosts and spiders and shit. Even though you see maybe one or two players here and there, since it's an open world with the MMO aspect, I did not feel like that took away from the experience at all. It was almost a little bit relieving and just nice to see another another human in that bleak world, to be honest. So if we're gonna talk a little bit about enemy design though, for the minor minions, they look fine to me. They have some updated designs like old Diablo monsters. We've got the goatmen, we've got the skeletons, we've got the spiders, we've got the zombies. We know about all of these types from the world of Sanctuary, but they do definitely look very cool. I'm impressed. They do die in 1 second though, so it's hard to pay too much attention to these, to be honest. But it is a nice addition, and I think they look cool. When it comes to bosses, though, visually very very cool. The Blizzard art team is carrying them as usual. But when it comes to like mechanics, so far not very interesting, to be honest. Especially coming from Lost Ark with their amazing raids and raid bosses. So far, these bosses have the standard, summon adds, large slam, or like a telegraphed like grab or CC. This is probably designed to be dodged with the spacebar, which is cool. They have damage areas on the ground, or like chasing bullets that you have to run around in circles. So, not super interesting. Hopefully more variety in the end game, but this is just copium once again. We don't know. Especially if the end game is Nightmare Dungeons, which is going to be the same old bosses we've already done in the beta, just scaled up to higher difficulty with some added affixes. I don't know. Not too excited about that, to be honest. And with the dungeon design, if we're going into that topic already, it's gonna feel absolutely fucking horrible doing these nightmare dungeons for 50, 100 plus times to farm out your item that you need. It's just the same, like, there's like 4 or 5 different areas, layouts. You like go to a corner, pick up thing, put on pedestal, either defend or go through a gate, go to the next room, do the same thing. Maybe there's like a kill all monsters, or maybe it's go to a corner and kill the guardians. Not very interesting, to be honest. I don't know how they could make these more interesting, but if you're going to farm these for 100 times plus, especially with the nightmare affixes, if they make them too annoying, people are gonna hate this. And the world bosses, I was hoping that these would be more Lost Ark style-ish encounters with like fun mechanics and fun puzzles. Unfortunately, they aren't quite, because world bosses in all of these games always have to be designed for a bunch of random people getting together and being able to beat the boss. So you can't have too difficult mechanics, because that's just going to be a very frustrating experience for everyone involved. And the party sizes are only 4 people, and you should be like around maybe 12, 16. I don't know how many is the max for the world bosses. But this is not going to be like some kind of aspirational end game content that's going to be difficult. They will most likely just be health sponges and loot pinatas for the end game, which I guess that's fine. It's not going to be something that I'm too interested in. You will kill them maybe 10, 20 times, so you get your item, and then probably never again. That's a little bit boring, and I do hope, I really, really, really hope that they add some kind of end game boss that is for a 4-man party, or maybe if you can do it with your clan as a 12-man party or something, or maybe an 8-man if that's too much. We really need some type of aspirational content that you can do together as the like similar to Lost Ark raid bosses, or similar to like the Uber Etziri, Uber Elder, Uber Shaper, Maven fights in Path of Exile. Because that's what's fun to grind for. We want cool bosses to defeat with the grind. I don't want to grind nightmare dungeons to be able to do the nightmare dungeon 1 second faster the next time. In that case, I'm just gonna do the story and quit the game. There's no point. If I'm gonna jump over to systems now, the crafting gathering system, haven't really seen what the potential of that is, but so far it just looked like you upgrade potions, you upgrade your items with gold, you salvage items, and then sometimes you have to go grind skins and ores from the open world. Not very interesting. I don't know why this is in the game, and I really hope that they don't force us to have to run around and farm skins and ores in the open world just to upgrade our items. I don't know about that. I would really hate it, to be honest, if I can't upgrade like pieces or craft some stuff because I'm missing skins or whatever and I have to run out in the open world. That's gonna feel really bad. But talking about the open world though, in case of the game cycle and the loop, like the open world is cool. I did enjoy that I could like level up my alts completely differently from how I leveled up my main. Or well, maybe not completely differently. I still did the main story quest, but instead of like going to the right side of the map and doing side quests over there and the dungeons over there, I went to the left side of the map and did side quests over there and dungeons over there. That was also fun. It did give me some slight variety, and that's just gonna be even easier and even better when you actually have access to Act 2 and Act 3, because the good thing is that you can choose which act you want to start off with. You can go to Act 2 immediately if you want to, as soon as you get to Kyovashad, around level 3, 4, 5. Or you could go to Act 3 and go over there. That's good. I really like that. That we are able to, kind of like the bounty system in Diablo 3. We have that variety when it comes to leveling alts. And I guess I do have to put in a tangent here. If, when it comes to the seasons, if we're gonna have to do the like the renown system, with all of the like completionist stuff, if that's gonna reset every every season, I am going to go insane. I would absolutely hate it if I had to go through the statues of Lilith and doing all of the dungeons for all of the aspects. I guess doing the dungeons is whatever, but the statues of Lilith and like exploring all of the zones and having to redo the strongholds and all of that. Maybe the strongholds would be fun, I don't know, but I don't think so. I think it's just going to be annoying having to do the completionist stuff again, because it is mandatory since you get Paragon points, skill points, potion slots. It's not something like in Lost Ark where you can just, oh, Makoko seeds, whatever, it's not too important, I'll just skip that. So that's a big downside. I'm very interested to see how they decide to go about that when it comes to the seasons. And for some more negative stuff, if the end game, we haven't really heard that much, but if it's just doing these like world events, getting nightmare sigils to upgrade dungeons, and killing world bosses every 2 hours, I will probably quickly lose interest in the game. I don't believe, from what we've heard so far, there are like Hell Tides and Threes of Whispers, but these are just kind of another flavor of world events. Like Hell Tides is just something that comes after Nightmare mode, where an area is going to be just swarmed by demons. You have to go there. It's kind of like a world event. Same thing with Trees of Whispers. It's a tree. It's going to tell you to go somewhere and do something. and you get extra points at some kind of currency where you can buy stuff. So I don't think that's going to change anything. As I said earlier, what I enjoyed the most in Lost Ark, as well as in PoE, is fighting the big bosses. So if there's nothing other to grind for, maybe PvP, but we all know how PvP ends up in ARPGs. It's never balanced, it's always shit. And especially when it comes to these buffering issues that I talked about earlier, combined with how abilities feel kind of like they're impossible to dodge. If you do a shadow step or a dash or something, I can't really spacebar that. It's gonna happen instantly, you're gonna take damage instantly, and usually in ARPGs there's no skill shots really, so most abilities are gonna be homing missiles, and it's probably gonna feel awful. But I'm not gonna be too negative here. So, there are some positives with the game, because the game does feel good. It does feel good. But so far, from what we know, I will probably just enjoy it as a one-time thing, go through the story, and then maybe do some endgame, try out some builds, and then that's it. We will see. Hopefully they add some cool bosses and shit, some aspirational content to defeat. And if we're gonna finish off here with endgame progression, so without knowing more of the endgame and the itemization, can't really be sure how deep it's going to be, but it has potential. It definitely has, because the itemization, it did have a lot of affixes that were pretty good. You're going to want to go +1 to abilities. You're going to want to go, depending on what you're focusing on, like plus damage to vulnerabilities or close targets or distant targets. And there are a lot of affixes that you're going to need to find. Rares are going to be important because you can find all of these affixes on the rares, slap on a legendary power to make them legendary, and that's probably going to be the endgame loop. You try to find rares, slap on a power, and boom, you have a very powerful item. It might be a little bit annoying while leveling though, because if you find like the perfect rare that you slap on the perfect legendary power at level 20, you're gonna need to re-find that exact same item again at level 40, 50, 60, 70, etc. So that might feel a little bit shitty, but I don't really know. That all depends on how long it takes to level up. You get to 80 plus in like a couple of days, it doesn't really matter that much. In that case, you're just going to be in the end game anyway, farm end game items, and it's just going to be like Diablo 3, where you start looking for primal, ancient, ultra, super items fairly quickly. So from what I've seen, I mostly play Sorceress. I did level up a Rogue to level 14 or something, so I don't really know much about that. But the Sorc, I did go in depth. I did try out all of the different elements and build types that I managed to suss out from the skill tree and the passive descriptions. So it does look like there are 2 distinct types of builds for each element. And one like multi-element zoo build, I guess. So if we're talking about lightning, I could find like a melee type, arc lash, maybe ball lightning as a core skill, where you go attack speed, crit, and focus on lucky hit chance for like perma stun effects and on stun effects. So I'm just gonna have really quick attack speed and crit chance with extra chance to stun, and that could be very cool, but probably not that good on bosses if bosses are immune to stun, as they usually are in these types of games to prevent some kind of perma-stun cheesing. And then we have a like crackling energy speed clear build, it seemed like. Because all of the crackling energy effects either increase movement speed or want you to move quickly to generate more cracking speed. That's gonna like snowball into more cracking energy, etc, etc. And then we've got, for fire, we have some speed clear, firewall, incinerate, burning build, where you pop down a firewall, walk through it, get movement speed, and then use incinerate for a single target that increases the burning damage. Just run, let everything die by burning. And then we've got like a healthy plus crit damage, a one-shot explosion, fireball, meteor build, where you just go for a bunch of crit and try to one-shot stuff with big numbers. For the ice build, we've got like a chill plus freeze, frozen orb, blizzard, kite build, I'm gonna do videos, of course, about all of these in the upcoming future, so do stick around, hit the subscribe button, and do join me on Twitch during this weekend if you want to see more of my content. This chill, like frozen or blizzard kite build is very good against just elites and normal mobs, because, well, everything is frozen, can't touch you. It does kind of suck against bosses though, because they are unfreezable, unslowable, and as you can see in one of my other videos, I do find the Butcher with this build, and he just completely stomps me. I can't do shit. But then there is the Ice Blades vulnerability CD reduction spam build that is just absolutely broken. They have to do something about this build, because Ice Blades pop vulnerability on something, you can use Ice Shards or Frost Nova to make stuff vulnerable, and then every time Ice Blades hit a vulnerable target, the cooldown reduces of Ice Blades, and then there's another improvement that you can pick where Ice Blades also reduces the cooldowns of all your other skills. So you have perma a bunch of Ice Blades out, perma no cooldowns on all of your defensives and mobility, and it's OP. And then there's like a summon zoo type build where you have Ice Blades and Hydra and Lightning Spear. You probably don't even need Lightning Spear and just go Ice Blades and Hydras. And then you pick up the passive that gives you more damage per active conjuration. So I could have like maybe 12 plus conjurations out at a time, and that's the build that I defeated the Butcher with the easiest. You're gonna have no cooldowns, you're gonna have a bunch of Ice Blades, and all of your Lightning Spears come out instantly pretty much. So yeah, that's all of the things that I had to say about Diablo 4. It does have potential. It's probably going to be a one and done thing from what we know so far. Play through the story, maybe farm out a little bit of a build, like try out some different builds and see if they're fun. But if there's no aspirational content to farm for, I will probably quit the game fairly early. So maybe like 5 out of 10, 6 out of 10 on release. But as we all know, Path of Exile was the exact same way when it released. It didn't really have any cool endgame content to grind for either. It just chilled out in docks all day, and that was fun. So who knows? Maybe this is gonna be fun too. And maybe in a year after release, we actually will have some cool aspirational endgame content to grind for, and that's when the new seasons come online. We'll see. So far, I'll give it a 5 to 6 out of 10. Maybe they can bump it up to a 7 or 8 if they have some cool endgame stuff. For now, thanks for watching. Do hang out on twitch.tv/gjojo with me this weekend if you do want to see more content, especially more sorceress content. But I am going to try out the druid and the necromancer, of course. But anyways, thanks for me, and see you in the next one.